Hello, welcome to our first how-to video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to organize and display data using an Excel spreadsheet. In this video, I'm going to use problems or work problems that are identical to the problems that you have in assignment 1. The only difference is the data that I'm going to use in this video. The data that I use in this video, it's going to be different than the data that you have on your assignment. Both data sets, however, are in sit-to-stand performance test. The data that I use is sit-to-stand performance data, however, it's in younger adults. The data that you will use in assignment 1 will be sit-to-stand performance data, performance scores in older adults. And so yes, obviously, and I'm sure you're aware of this, there's large differences between young and older adults on numerous different performance tests, including this one, the sit-to-stand performance. For those of y'all that don't know what sit-to-stand performance test is, it's a 30-second test, and kind of like the name implies, it requires subjects to stand up and sit down in a chair, and the objective of this test is to do as many repetitions as you can in 30 seconds. The more sit-to-stand repetitions that you do in 30 seconds, that's indicative of being stronger, being healthier in patients. And so it's an easy test. It's commonly performed in the clinic on patients. And so yes, we're going to use this as an example today in this how-to video, as well as in your assignment 1. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the worksheet assignment. Okay, here it is. And again, this assignment should look very similar to your assignment 1 that's on Blackboard. Again, the only difference is the data. The data that I'm using in this video is right here. And notice the difference. Yeah, it's still 30-second sit-to-stand performance test. However, it's in younger adults, like I said earlier. The data that you will use in your assignment 1 will be in older adults. Okay, and so yes, obviously the values here, you'll notice these values, these data points here are different than the ones that you have in assignment 1. So keep that in mind. Okay, but after watching this video, after seeing me work the problems, the same problems that you're going to be working using your data, you should be able to successfully answer all of these questions on assignment 1. Okay, so let's take a look here at the data, and before we start, and you'll do this too, make sure and remember to include your name, okay, where it says name in the top left corner of the page. Make sure and do that. Remember to do that. All right, so here's our raw data. Okay, and then if you take a look at the first question, the first problem, it says organize these data into an Excel spreadsheet. Type in the subject numbers in column A and the sit-to-stand scores in column B. Insert labels at the top of each column. Label the first column subject number and the second column sit-to-stand score. Once finished, copy and paste your spreadsheet as a picture in the space below. You may have to adjust the size of your spreadsheet so that it fits on this page. Okay, so obviously for this question here, it says in the very first sentence we're going to use Excel. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and pull up Excel. And again, you'll do this as well on your computer when working assignment 1. And we'll open up a blank or a new worksheet. Okay, so yeah, this should look very similar to the spreadsheet that you will use for your assignment 1. Okay, so now that we have our Excel spreadsheet up, the first objective here for question 1 is we're going to organize the data. And again, if you need further information, further guidance on this, please review the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint goes into detail on the steps for doing this. So for further reference, yes, please go to the PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and pull back the assignment, and I'm going to move this over. Let's see, just a little bit. That way we can see the assignment and the spreadsheet simultaneously. And let me minimize this a little bit. There we go. So yeah, now we can see them both. Okay, so yeah, we're going to organize these data. And here are the sit-to-stand scores. I'm going to start to input these scores into column B. Okay, and it actually says to do that in column B. I'm going to start in cell 2 for column B. The reason is, and in just a second, we're going to include labels. And typically we include these labels in our Excel spreadsheet in the top row. And so I'm going to save space in cells 1 here for the labels. That's why I'm going to start in cell 2 in column B with the actual data. So let's start to input data, and again, this is what you're going to do, and so you can manually type in the data just like I'm doing, just like I'm showing now. Okay, 23, 19, 18. Again, I'm just going down the list, and again, you're going to do the same thing with your data, okay, for your assignment 1. Okay, I think we've got all the data points inputted, and now the next step, and if you take a look here, it talks about, and again for further reference, go to the PowerPoint for more information on this, but it says type in the subject numbers in column A. Okay, so yeah, we've done the sit-to-stand data in column B. Okay, that's what we just inputted. We're going to input the subject numbers now into column A in our Excel spreadsheet. And just like it says in the PowerPoint, for each data point, okay, there's a subject, all right? Each subject has a data point. Each subject has a sit-to-stand score in this case. And so, yeah, to reflect that, we're going to put a subject number, a different subject number, into each cell corresponding to their sit-to-stand score. And so, yeah, we can start by inputting subject number 1, okay, 2, 3, and here's a kind of a cheat here. Instead of manually typing in the subject numbers, okay, all the way down to the bottom here, to help save time, what you can do is after you type in the first 3 data points or so, you can highlight those 3 just like I've done here. Left click and hold with your mouse, and then scroll down all the way to the very bottom of your data list. And then voila, okay, we've got all of our numbers in numerical order. And so yeah, so anytime you need to do that in Excel to create a list, particularly a list in numerical order, okay, you can do that, such as we did here. In question 1 here, after we've inputted the subject numbers, we've inputted our sit-to-stand data into columns A and B respectively, now we're going to include those labels. And so it says label the first column subject number. So that's what I'm going to do here for the first column, column A, subject number. And it looks here like it's in bold, and so I'm going to do the same thing on my Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to bold this, okay, and the bold icon is right here. And so you can highlight the cell, hit bold, okay, and then that should bold the subject number there. For the label for the second column, it says input sit-to-stand score. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. And again, you can adjust the width of the cell, that way it fits, okay, just like I've done here. And same thing, we're going to bold it. Okay, very good. And so, yeah, now that we have our data points inputted, okay, and organized into a spreadsheet, we've got subject numbers here in column A. We've got our sit-to-stand scores a score for each subject. Okay, again, remember if you look at the PowerPoint, for each row, okay, that is a subject. Okay, so for each row is a different subject, and we have that here shown in the spreadsheet. We've got our labels, subject number, CITESCAN score. I think we are ready to go. And so yeah, at the very end it says, after we've done this, once finished, copy and paste your spreadsheet as a picture in the space below. You may have to adjust the size of your spreadsheet so that it fits on this page. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go back over to my Excel sheet. I'm going to left click and hold, highlight all of my data. I'm going to go to copy, and then I'm going to go to right click back on my assignment 1. I'm going to right click, and then you'll notice that there's paste options. It says in the instructions here, paste as a picture. So let's do that. You'll notice here at the towards the end there's a picture, paste picture icon. Click on that. Okay, and then yeah, there we go. All right, we've got our data organized now into an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and yeah, we're going to copy and paste it just like we've done here, and that is going to be our answer here for number 1. And again, you're going to do the same thing, the exact same thing, follow the same steps that I just showed you here. Again, remember, the only difference is the data. The data that you're using is slightly different. Okay, the data that you're using is in older adults, my data is in younger adults, and so yes, the data is slightly different than the data that you're using. Okay, but it's going to be the same steps that I just showed you here. If you need to, you can adjust the size of this spreadsheet in order for it to fit on the page. Okay, now that we've finished question number 1, let's move on to the second question. On our assignment, how many subjects are in this data set? Okay, well, like I said earlier, for each data point there's a subject, right? And again, we showed that here in the spreadsheet that we created. And so yeah, but with quick glance, and again, refer to the PowerPoint, it talks about this. We can count, we can simply count, right, the number of scores, or yeah, again, by doing this in the spreadsheet, we can simply look at the spreadsheet itself and see how many subjects are there. And yeah, we've got 23, right? Okay, starting with subject number 1 all the way down to 23, we've got 23 subjects. Okay, 1 subject for each CITESCAN score for each data point. So how many subjects are in this data set? Yeah, for this particular data set, and again, remember, it could be different for yours. Okay, keep that in mind. Your data set is different than mine. Okay, the CITESCAN data, the subject data, it's different. Okay, and so it could be different for you. But for my example, okay, in this video here, there are 23 subjects. Okay, and remember, we can use this lowercase n italicized to represent sample size. Okay, so yeah, the sample size in this particular example here, the number of subjects is in fact 23. Okay, now that we've answered number 2, let's move on to number 3. What are the minimum and maximum values for the CITESCAN scores? If we go back over to our Excel spreadsheet, again, we can take a look in column B, and we can manually identify which one is the smallest value and which one is the largest value. However, and you could probably get away with doing that with this particular data set here. Again, there's only 23 subjects in this example. That's not too many. And so yeah, you can fairly easily manually identify which one is the smallest, the minimum value, and which one is the largest, the highest, the maximum value. However, what if we had this? What if we had a sample size, let's say, of 100 or 200 subjects? Gosh, can you imagine having to go through each value and scrolling through in order to identify which one's the smallest, which one's the largest? Yeah, that would take a lot of time. Excel is a great program for a lot of different things, including this here. We can use Excel functions in order to determine the minimum and maximum values, where we don't have to manually identify what those are. So let's do that here. So let's look back over at our Excel sheet. I'm going to record the minimum and maximum values underneath the data, okay, down here And so I'm going to type in minimum, and then I'm also going to type in maximum as well, okay, in these two cells. I'm going to change the width and so we can fit those two terms in the cells. I'm also going to bold them as well. To calculate the minimum, let's do the minimum first. And again, remember the minimum value, all that is just the smallest value. Okay, it's the smallest, it's the lowest value in the data set. To do this, we're going to click on this cell, okay, this cell in column B, which is right next to my minimum value, my minimum label that I just typed in. I'm going to click into this empty cell in column B. Next, I'm going to go to the function key. It says insert function. I'm going to click on this. You might see the minimum, and I actually see, here's the minimum right here, okay, in this set of functions that are right here in this first slide. However, if you don't see the minimum value, you can search for it. You can simply type in minimum and then hit go. And then, yeah, one of the very first options is the min. Okay, so minimum, it's the same thing. It returns the smallest number in a set of values. Again, that's what we're trying to calculate, that minimum value. So this is what we want, min. Okay, MIN stands for minimum. I'm going to click OK. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, starting at the very top cell of my sit-to-stand score data. So click right here in column B, cell 2, and then I'm going to click and hold and drag down all the way to the very end of my sit-to-stand score data, okay, my last data point here, and then I'm going to release my mouse. Once I've done this, I'm going to click OK, and then yes, voila, there we go. The Excel program automatically calculates the minimum value for us. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the maximum. Okay, so maximum, I wrote in the label here, maximum, and so I'm going to click into this empty cell right next to the maximum label. This is where I'm going to put my maximum value at. I'm going to click and highlight this cell just like I've done here. I'm going to go back up to the insert function. This time I'm going to type in maximum. There it is. Okay, again, one of the very first, the first function this time, max. Max stands for maximum. Again, you can look at the definition, returns the largest value in a set of values. Again, that's what we want. The maximum is the largest value. So maximum max, that's the function we want to use. We're going to click OK. Just like we did with the minimum, I'm going to start here at the top of my data. Left click and hold. Drag all the way down to the bottom, the last data point, release, and then click OK. And then, yeah, there we go. Okay, there's my maximum value. Okay, so now I have my minimum and maximum values. And again, we let Excel, okay, do the calculations for us. So in our assignment, if we go back over here to the right, I'm going to type in those values. So the minimum, okay, and again, in this example, your minimum maximum could be different, right? Okay, you've got a different data set. But for my example here in this video, my minimum value is 17. And my maximum value is 24. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and move on to question number 4. Question 4 says, arrange the sit-to-stand data into a frequency distribution. Okay, and again, for further reference, go to review the PowerPoint. It tells you step-by-step instructions, pretty specific here on exactly what I want you to do here for this question, question number 4 in the assignment. Type in the sit-to-stand scores in column E and the number of subjects who received a given score in column F. And when we type in those sit-to-stand scores, we're going to start with the smallest value. The smallest value, again, is what? The minimum value, right? And so which value am I going to start with in my example here? Yeah, I'm going to start with here, 17. Okay, so whatever your minimum value is, that's what you're going to start with when you create this frequency distribution. It says to type in the sit-to-stand scores in column E, so let's go back over to our Excel spreadsheet, column E, here it is here for me. Again, I'm going to start here in cell 2 in column E. The reason is, and if you take a look down further in the problem, it says we're going to insert labels again. Remember, labels typically go into the top row. at the very top of the column. And so yeah, I'm going to save space for those. And so that's why I'm going to start here in cell 2 in column E with those data points. So I'm going to input my sit-to-stand scores starting with my smallest value, and again in my example it's the minimum value, it's the 17. So I'm going to go 17, 18, 19, I'm going to type all these in, 20, 21, 22, all the way to my, what value am I going to stop at? Yeah, obviously I'm going to stop at my maximum value. Okay, the maximum value, again, in my example is 24, so that's where I'm going to stop in this example. And again, it could be right, it could be different for yours. Okay, and again, it just depends on your data, what your minimum and maximum values are. The minimum value is the first value, the maximum value is the last value. Now that we've inputted those sit-to-stand scores, it says the number of subjects who received a given score. That's what we're going to input here in column F. Okay, the column F is the one right next to column E. So for 17, let's do that one first. Let's input all of the scores that showed a 17. Okay, so let's take a look back at our sit-to-stand scores in column B, and let's count how many 17s there are. Okay, how many subjects scored a 17 on the test? That's what we're trying to determine here in this column. So we've got 1 17 here, 1, 2, there's another 17, 2 17s, any more? Nope, just 2. Okay, so I'm going to type in 2 here for my value 17. Let's move on to the next one, 18. How many subjects scored an 18? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, 5. So I'm going to input 5. 5 subjects scored an 18 on the test. What about 19? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I count 6, so I'm going to input 6 here for 19. Let's move on to 20. 20, 1. There's 1 here, 20. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I count 5. I'm going to input 5 here. Let's go to the next one, 21. How many 21s are there? 1, 2. Okay, I think that's it. There's 2 21s. All right, let's move on to the next, 22. How many 22s are there? 1. Okay, right here at the very end. So only 1 score of 22. Let's go to 23. How many 23s are there? There's 1. Okay, I think there's only 1 there for 23. So input 1. Last one, 24. How many 24s are there? 1. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, just 1. 1 for 24. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what we do when we create a frequency distribution. We list in the first column, okay, the range of scores, starting with the minimal value and going all the way to the max. And then in the second column, the next column, we list the frequency. Okay, the frequency being how many subjects. How many subjects scored a value of 17 in this example, or 18, and so on and so on. That's how we do it. That's how we create a frequency distribution. Fairly easy. Now we're not quite done yet. It says insert labels at the top of each column. Label the first column X. Okay, so capital X. That's the label for the first. Again, it's bolded here, so I'm going to bold it here on my Excel sheet. You can just click on the bold icon. And the second column we're going to label F, a lowercase f, and it looks like this F not only is lowercase, but it's also italicized. To italicize something, you can click on the italic icon here. And then also too, it is bold, and so I'm going to bold it as well. One more thing before we move on. Notice how our labels are not directly over our values. Do you see that here? Do you see how the labels X and F are over to the left of the cell and our values are over here to the right? Let's change that. Okay, let's change our labels and let's move our labels to the right so they're directly over the values. So to do that, if we click on, for example, this cell here with the X label, and we go up here to our Microsoft Excel sheet, and then there's a button that says Align Right. If we click on that, notice how it moves the label to the right of the cell. Same thing, let's do it for this cell. Let's move that label to the right. There we go. So now these labels are directly over the values. Okay, once we're finished, copy and paste your frequency distribution as a picture in the space below. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Again, similar to what we did earlier, let's left click and hold, highlight all of our data in this spreadsheet. We'll click below the question to input, to paste. Right click, go to my paste options. Remember it says in the problem here, we're going to paste as a picture. So find the picture icon here and then click, and then yeah, there we go. It says at the very end of the question, you may have to adjust the size of your frequency distribution so it fits on this page. Make sure it is large enough for me to see. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Notice how I have a lot of room here, okay, on this page that's still remaining. I'm going to make it a little bit larger, okay, just easier to see. And so in order to do that, you can highlight, okay, the spreadsheet that you just created in the Microsoft Word document in the assignment. If you go to Picture Format, you'll notice on the right here that there's a Change in Size option. If you click here at the very top and you click on the upwards triangle, that increases the size. Notice that the size of my spreadsheet is increasing. Okay, and so yeah, so make it just, you know, again, there's no set criteria for this particular one here. Just make sure it's large enough for me to see, okay, for grading purposes. All right, that looks good. Okay, now that we've created our frequency distribution, we pasted it into our assignment. Now we're ready to move on to question number 5. So let's go ahead and scroll down to question 5 in our assignment. It says use the frequency distribution data. Okay, that was what we just created in question 4 to create a frequency polygon graph. All right, so for question 5, we're going to create a frequency polygon graph. And again, similar to question 4, you'll notice here in the problem, I'm very specific on what I want you to do. And again, I haven't touched on this yet, but this is one of the things that I'm going to grade you on in the assignments. Okay, not only for this assignment, but for future assignments as well. Your grade is going to depend on how well you follow these instructions. If you don't do all of these things exactly like I state here, you're going to get points taken off. Okay, so that's how you're going to be graded on these assignments. Yeah, part of your grade is on these questions and how well you can follow the instructions that are listed. Okay, so we're going to create a frequency polygon. We're going to do this again using Excel. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to the left here in my Excel sheet, and I'm going to click away. Okay, so that way nothing is highlighted currently now. I'm going to click on a open cell. Okay, I'm going to provide myself a little bit of space, so I'm going to click on this cell right here. Okay, and column H, a blank cell. Yeah, so click on a blank cell. Okay, give yourself a little space, just like I've done here, space between this cell and the frequency distribution that you created in the spreadsheet. Once you've done this, I want you to left click, and you can actually start down here with the actual values, the data values. So left click here, okay, on that minimum value, and then hold, and then highlight all the data, just like I've shown here. Go to, once you've highlighted all of this, go to Insert, go to Charts, and the chart you're going to choose, yeah, is a scatter chart. And the specific one you're going to choose is this one here. It's this scatter with smooth line and markers. That's the one that you're going to choose to create this frequency polygon. So go ahead and click it. Okay, yeah, and now we've got this chart created. And again, like I was referring to earlier, sometimes when you highlight a cell and you create a graph, it goes in that general area. But yeah, make sure you have plenty of room, okay, space in between the frequency distribution data and the chart that's created here. Okay, so again, we're using the frequency distribution data that we created in the previous problem to create this frequency polygon. That's what we've done. Now again, we're not quite done yet, right? Take a look over here at the assignment, at the question. Very specific on what we want to do here with this graph. The reason why I'm so specific here is graphs and making graphs is very, very important in statistics. When we make graphs, when we create those, we want them to make them as easy as possible for a viewer, a reader to understand. And in order to do that, we've got to make very high quality graphs. The default, okay, which is what this is here, the default in Excel for these graphs, it's not very high quality. For example, notice how here we've got this huge amount of empty space. Do you see that? Okay, that doesn't look very good. Okay, when a reader looks at this graph, they're going to notice, right, all this empty space here. That doesn't look good. That doesn't look visually appealing. And so, yeah, we need to make adjustments. We need to make this graph better looking. Okay, and that's what these instructions are for here. It's in order to instruct you on how to make a high quality graph. So, the first thing it says is include labels for both the horizontal and vertical axes. Let's do that. To do that, we highlight our graph that we just created. Under the chart design, you see this here at the very top of the Excel sheet, this tab, chart design. Go over to the left where it says add chart element, click, and then go to axis titles. Let's do the horizontal first. Click on primary horizontal. Notice how a title has been created here. Now obviously we need to change that title to be specific to what we're showing here in this graph. And it says specifically here, label the horizontal axis sit to stand score. Okay, so that's what that horizontal axis, that's what it's showing here. That's the sit to stand score. So let's put a label there. Let's put an axis to indicate that. So I'm going to type in sit to stand score here for my horizontal axis. Again, just like it shows here, it's bold. So let's bold this. So go back to the Home tab, click on bold. That bolds it. Also too, to make it darker, okay, you can also go to the font color and click on the automatic dark, and it just makes it a little bit darker. Yeah, it's a subtle difference, but yeah, it does make it a little bit darker, those axis labels, so let's do that as well. Okay, let's make the next axis here the vertical axis. We're going to do the exact same thing, highlight our graph just like we've done here, and again, you'll notice that once we highlight the graph, it highlights the border, okay, so you know when we highlight the graph, this is what it's supposed to look like. The border is highlighted, okay, the graph is highlighted. Let's go back to chart design, add chart element, axis title. This time let's do vertical, primary vertical. Okay, here's our vertical axis. Obviously we need to change this. It says in question 5 we need to label our vertical axis frequency. Okay, that's what we're showing there on that vertical axis, on that y-axis is frequency. Okay, so we'll type it in. Same thing that we did down here. Let's go back to home, let's bold. Frequency, let's change it to black font. And then also too, if you'd like, you can move, click and drag, you can move the frequency label, okay, this frequency axis, the vertical axis, a little bit further away to give you space in between the axis and the values here. Alright, so now that we have our axes, we have our horizontal and vertical axis, what does it say to do next? It says remove the title and delete all horizontal and vertical grid lines. So here's the title here. It says chart title, highlight it, and then on your keyboard you can hit the delete button and that will delete the title. Let's do the same thing. It says delete all horizontal and vertical grid lines. Okay, so let's click on the horizontal first. Horizontal grid lines, notice how they're highlighted here. If you click delete again on your keyboard, they're deleted. Let's click on the vertical grid lines now. Highlight, click delete on your keyboard. Okay, and then yeah, they're deleted again. Very good. Okay, now that we've deleted the title. We deleted the horizontal and vertical grid lines except for the axes, right? We definitely want to keep the axes here, and so the axes being the vertical and the horizontal axes as you see. Okay, the next thing it says, make the line black. Okay, so again, the line that it's referring to is the graph that we created. Okay, we created essentially here a line graph with markers. So if you left click on the line, it should highlight as you see here. And then if you also on the line with your mouse, with your cursor, if you right click now after you've highlighted the line, if you right click, go down to Format Data Series. And let's see, I'm going to actually move my graph so you can see what happens, okay, as we make changes to the graph using this over here, this format chart area. So again, yeah, highlight, right click, Format Data Series. This should pop up here on your Excel screen. It says here to make the line black, so let's click on the paint can to do that. Click on the line, okay, the line here, and then it has a number of functions down below. Click on solid line and then go down to color. Click on color and then go to black, which is right here at the very top. Okay, cool. And then yeah, notice in our graph here now we have a black line. Okay, very good. It also says to include markers. Well, we've already got the markers. The markers are these dots here, right? Okay, these are the markers. We already have those. But it says in parentheses here, make sure the markers are black circles, size 5 with no border or outline. Notice here the default, okay, in Excel, when making a graph such as this, the markers are blue. They're not black. And so, yeah, we need to change that. So let's click, left click again on the line, and then if we right click again and go to Format Data Series, okay, that's over here again. Let's go to Paint Bucket again. This time let's go to Marker up here, click. Let's go to Marker Options. Let's go to Built-in and then Type. Yeah, this is where we can change the type of marker. It's already selected for us as circle. This is the circle here, okay, FYI. So it's already selected for us, so we're good to go there. Circle, good. The size is 5, that's good. Okay, that's what it says here in the instructions, so that we don't have to change that. Let's go to fill. Fill, okay, is the color of the marker inside. We need to change that to black. Okay, it says to do black circles in the directions. So let's go to solid fill. Let's go to color, and let's go to black here. Okay, and then yeah, you'll notice here that yeah, it's black now, these circles. One last thing here with these, take a look at the instructions over here in the assignment. It says black circle size 5 with no border or outline. I don't know if you can tell, but let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see this. Can you see how the outline is here in blue for each marker? It says here in the instructions we don't need an outline. We don't need a border. We need to remove this. So again, left click, right click, go to Format Data Series, go back to Paint Bucket, go to Marker, go down to below Fill, there's a option for border. Okay, and then below border we have options here. What we need to select for border to include no border, no outline is this one here, no line. So simply click on that, and then you'll notice that that has removed the border. Okay, very good. The next thing it says for us to do is insert major tick marks on the outside of both axes. To do that, let's start with the horizontal first. Let's left click, and you can left click on any one of the values here that we have on the horizontal axis. I'm going to left click on this 10 here. Notice how that highlights the axis. Once we highlighted the axis, if we right click, go down to Format Axis, okay, we have these options here now on the right side of our Excel sheet. Axis options. At the very bottom of Axis options we have tick marks. Go ahead and click on tick marks. That opens up two options here. It says here in the instructions include major tick marks. So let's go to the major type, go over here, and it says to make them on the outside of both axes, so let's click on outside. We don't need to do anything with the minor type, just the major, and notice what's been done. Notice how we have tick marks now, okay, for each value. Very good. That's what we want. Let's do the same thing here for the vertical axis. Left click, highlight, and then right click, format axis. Axis options, go down to tick marks, go to major type. They need to be outside, and then you can click away and notice how, yes, now tick marks have been created in our graph. Okay, one for each value. Very good. Okay, the next set of instructions here, it says for the horizontal axis, make the minimum bound value 8 and the maximum bound value 16 with major units of 1. So let's do the horizontal. Let's left click, highlight the horizontal, right click, format axis. Again, we have our axis options here. To change the bounds, okay, you'll notice that's up here at the very top of axis options. The minimum, it says here specifically, we need to make that value 8 and the maximum bound value 16. Now these are the instructions that you will use for your data. However, for my data, mine's going to be a little bit different here. And the reason why is because my data is different than yours. Remember, my data is different than yours, and so these specific instructions are for your data. The instructions for my data, because my data is different, my bounds are also going to be different. And what I'm going to select for my bounds, and this is a good rule of thumb to keep in mind for future reference, is we're going to select the minimum bound as the minimum value. If you remember, what's the minimum value in my data set here? If I go back over to the left, you'll see it in my Excel spreadsheet. The minimum value was 17. And so that's what I'm going to do here in my example. Now again, in your example, you're going to follow these instructions here on the assignment. Okay, make the minimum bound value 8, the maximum 16. However, in mine here, because my data is different, I'm going to use the minimum bound value, of 17. So all you have to do to change the minimum bound and the maximum is to input those values here. So my minimum bound I'm going to change to 17. Okay, now what did that do? Did you see that there? Remember earlier I said, yeah, one of the things that, again, that is problematic with the default graph created in Excel is that huge amount of empty space. By changing these minimum and maximum bounds, we remove that empty space, making the graph more visually appealing. Let's do the same thing for the maximum. The maximum, again, it's going to be different for you. The maximum bound value, make sure and follow these instructions. Okay, make sure for your data, okay, when you're doing your assignment 1, make sure, yes, and make that a 16. However, for my data, I'm going to make my maximum value, my maximum bound value, my maximum value. And so again, if we scroll over to the left, we'll remember that the maximum value in my example is 24. So that's what I'm going to change my maximum bound value to. So instead of 25, I'm going to type in 24, click away. Oops, sorry. And you'll notice, yeah, that changed the maximum bound. So now the maximum value on our scale is 24. The minimum value on our scale is 17. That's what we want. Okay, we want the minimum value on our minimum bound, our maximum value on our maximum bound. So when we create frequency polygons such as this here, again, like I said earlier, that's a good rule of thumb. Use the minimum and the maximum values in order to determine the bounds. Now that we've done this, one last thing. If you remember here in the instructions, it says with major units of 1. Okay, it's actually already done this for us as the default here, but if you need to change it, this is how you do it. Under axis options, under the bounds, there's the units. You'll see the major type here. Look how it's already set for us at 1. Okay, but for whatever reason, if you did need to change that, okay, you would do it right here, and you could just change that, yeah, to 1. But again, it's already set at 1 for us. Okay, so with major units of 1, that's what it means here. Okay, major units 1. What does that mean on our graph? That just means between each value, there's 1. Okay, so yeah, so 17, 18, 19, there's 1 in between each value. Okay, so the major units are 1 here. Okay, so for the next one, the vertical axis. For the vertical axis, make the minimum bound value 0 and the maximum bound value 7 with major units of 1. Notice that the default has already got that for us, so we actually don't have to change that. But again, FYI, if you were to change, okay, the minimum maximum bounds, again, very similar to what we did earlier with the horizontal, you would highlight, left click, highlight, right click, format access, go down to access options, go to access options. The minimum, you'll notice, yeah, is already set to 0. The maximum is already set to 7. That's what it says for us to do, so we don't need to change anything there. The major units is also already set to 1, okay? And again, what does that mean? That just means that there's 1 in between, okay, each tick mark, each value. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so on. So that looks good. All right, very good. Okay. So I think that's it. I think we've done it. I think we've created our frequency polygon. And again, notice how, and again, I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, but again, from my perspective, okay, and maybe from your perspective too, it does look a lot better, doesn't it? Okay, and again, one of the key things that we did here, not only did we include labels, okay, include axes, we changed the line to black, just a little bit more easier to see by doing that, changing it to black, changing the markers to black. We also changed the bounds, and that probably was the most important thing, making it more visually appealing. We changed the bounds on this horizontal axis to remove any empty space there may have been in the default. Okay, so now that we've done this, now that we've created our graph, it says once finished, copy and paste your frequency polygon graph as a picture in the space below. You can copy it directly from Excel or use the snipping tool on your computer. Okay, I'm going to show you actually both ways to do this. If you want to just simply copy it from Excel, that's definitely the easiest way to go. All you have to do is just click on your graph like I've done. Okay, make sure that the border is highlighted. Okay, the graph is highlighted. Let's see, yeah, there we go, just like that. And then yeah, you can just right click, okay, down here in the graph like I've done. Right click, go to copy, click, okay, and then yeah, scroll down here to the blank space, and then you can hit right click and then go to picture and then left click. There we go. Okay, and now we've copied and pasted our frequency polygon into our assignment. Okay, and this is what you're going to do here in your assignment 1. Now another way to do this, it says here in parentheses, you could use the snipping tool on your computer. I'll show you this as well. If you search on your computer for snipping tool, okay, it shows up on mine here as an app. All right, and again, depending on your computer, it may be a little different. All right, so again, I can only speak for the computer that I have in front of me right now. Click on snipping tool. Okay, an option pops up just like this here. Go to try snip and sketch, click on that, and then click on new. And then afterwards, after you do this, and the video, on the video here, it wouldn't allow me to show you exactly, but what you do is you click on that button that I showed earlier, and basically you just click and drag and you highlight, okay, the graph. You highlight the graph just like I've done here. Okay, and so yeah, that looks pretty good there. Go up to the top here and hit copy. Okay, and then you can minimize. Okay, minimize this here, and then yeah, you can delete this. Okay, I'll delete it here for just so I can show you, and then yeah, you can right click now and then paste. Okay, and then yeah, it pastes it right there for you. And notice that when I just did that, there was only one paste option. Okay, and so yeah, so if you do choose to use the snipping tool, okay, yeah, you can just use that one paste option in order to paste the graph right here, just like I've done it. All right, so cool, nice. So yeah, we've created a nice looking figure here, and again, It says here at the very bottom you may have to adjust the size of your frequency polygon so that it fits on this page. This looks pretty good right here the way I have it, but on your end, if you need to make it bigger or smaller, you can highlight the picture you just created, go to picture format, and then you can again adjust the size like we did earlier with the spreadsheet, okay, to make it smaller or larger. And again, just make sure it's large enough for me to see, make sure it's clear. Okay, so yeah, that looks pretty good there. All right, so we created our frequency polygon. Very nice looking graph. And then now we'll scroll down here and let me pull these up actually. Pull these up on the same page as the graph, yeah, so you can see. All right, so now we've created our frequency polygon. Okay, looks good. Followed all the instructions. Let's move on to question number 6. 6 says the frequency polygon created in question 5 best represents A. Now, what does this look like here? And again, I encourage you to review the PowerPoint, study the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint talks about the different curves that are formed in these frequency polygons. Notice this frequency polygon that was created in my example here. According to the PowerPoint, what does this look like? What type of curve does this best represent? The curve that's created in this frequency polygon. It best represents a positively skewed curve. Why is it positive? Well, if you look at the PowerPoint, it tells you why, but notice that the long tail. See this long tail here? Okay, we call this the tail. See this tail, how it's so long here on the right side or the positive side, okay, in the positive direction to the right. Okay, that's why we call this a positively skewed curve. Now, if it was a long tail to the left, okay, and a short tail to the right, what would we call that? We would call that a negatively skewed curve, okay, because it's pointing opposite. It's pointing to the left, okay, towards the negative. And so, yeah, so that's why, okay, so yeah, depending upon the tail and the direction that the tail is pointing in, the long tail, that's going to tell you what type of skewed graph it is. Also, too, remember we talked about a curve called the normal curve, okay, and you'll notice that that's actually the first option here in the multiple choice, the normal curve. What does a normal curve look like? Yeah, a normal curve looks like, and let's see if I can pull one up here for you to see on the PowerPoint. I'm going to pull the PowerPoint over for you to see just for a second here. This is an example right here of a normal curve, okay, and again, go to the PowerPoint. PowerPoint goes into more detail here on what the normal curve is, what its characteristics are, and we'll come back to the normal curve quite a bit throughout the semester, so it's very, very important that you understand this one as well as the skewed curves, the positive and negative that I just talked about. Yeah, this is the normal curve. The normal curve, okay, notice we have tails here on either end, and notice a characteristic of this curve is that it's symmetrical. Okay, symmetrical being what? What does that mean? That means if we were to divide the curve in half, okay, if we were to divide it, look at my mouse, if we were to divide this curve in half on this line here, it would fold on top of each other perfectly, okay, or symmetrically. That's what symmetrical means. The left side is equal to the right side. They are identical. And so, yeah, sure enough, the left side is identical to the right side. Okay, this is a perfect example here of a normal curve. Okay, where we've got tails. Yeah, we've got tails in this curve too, but notice how the tails are equal. Okay, we've got a tail to the right, a tail to the left, but they are equal. Okay, one is not longer than the other. As opposed to, let me give you another example here, the positive skew, and again, notice that that's very similar to the graph that I just created, that I just showed you in this video. This is an example of a positively skewed curve. Again, remember, positively skewed. Why is it called positively skewed? Well, it's because this long tail here, okay, notice how this tail is much longer than this tail over here. The long tail is pointed in the positive direction. Again, we can also have a negative skewed curve. Okay, again, this is in the PowerPoint as well, a negative skewed curve. I touched on it just a second ago. Why is it called negative skewed? It's because the long tail, which is this one here, right? It's on the left side now in a negative skewed curve. The long tail is pointing in the negative direction to the left. It is longer than this tail. And what direction is it pointing in? It's pointing to the left, so pointing towards the negative direction. That's why we call it a negative skewed curve. Okay, so yeah, so we talked about 3 different types of curves in the PowerPoint. A normal curve, a negatively skewed curve, and a positively skewed curve. And so in my particular example here, what does this best represent? Yeah, it best represents a positively skewed curve. So what I'm going to do here in order to select my answer, and you're going to do the same thing on your assignment when you select your answer, is bold it. And then also too, you can go up here to the top where my mouse is. You can click on this icon here, and then you can go to yellow, okay, to highlight it. Okay, and then that way it just makes sure that I see which option you choose, okay, which answer you pick. That way I'm able to give you credit for it. So yeah, in this particular example here, the one that I did in this video, this is a positively skewed curve. Now remember, your data is different in your assignment, okay, your assignment 1, and so yeah, your curve may be different, right? Okay, your curve might not necessarily be a positive skewed curve. It could be one of the others that I just got through talking about. It could be a normal curve. It could be a negatively skewed curve. Okay, we didn't talk about this last one, a U-shaped curve. What is a U-shaped curve? A U-shaped curve, watch my mouse here, a U-shaped curve is just that, just like the name implies. It looks like a U. Okay, it looks like a U where we have a high number of scores in the extremes and a low number here in the middle. Okay, that's a U-shaped curve. We didn't talk about that in the PowerPoint, but just FYI, that's what that one is. Okay, but in this example here, my frequency polygon that I created, it is a positively skewed curve. Okay, last question. Most of the subjects had sit-to-stand scores that were, okay, in the poor range, in the higher range, in the middle range. All right, well, if we take a look at the data here, what is my data indicating? What is this frequency polygon? What is this positively skewed curve? What is this indicating? Well, it indicates that a large number of subjects scored in this area, right? Again, if we take a look at the frequency, remember the frequency is the number of subjects that scored a certain value on the test. So if you take a look, for example, at the value 19, okay, a sit-to-stand score of 19, look how many subjects scored a 19 on this test. 6 people scored a 19. 5 people scored an 18. Another 5 people scored a 20. Okay, 2 people scored a 17. And so yeah, so just looking at those 4 data points there, 17, 18, 19, and 20, gosh, what could you say? Yeah, you could say that majority of the data, most of the subjects scored sit-to-stand values of one of these. And how would you describe one of these values here, 17, 18, 19, 20? How would you describe these values here compared to the other values on the scale? Well, since these values are over to the left, and I talked about at the very beginning of the video today, the more sit-to-stand repetitions that you do in 30 seconds, the better the performance, the stronger, okay, the more healthy the patient is, the healthier the patient is. And so the lower the number of repetitions, the less healthy, right? Okay, the weaker, all right, less strong the patient is. And so these scores over here on the left side, this would be indicative of poor performance on the test. People who score over here on the right side, that's better, right? More repetitions, okay, that's indicative of being stronger, healthier. That's better, that's higher performance. Values over here, that's representative of poor performance. So because these values are over here to the left, because we have a high frequency, okay, a lot of subjects scored these poor values, 17, 18, 19, 20, what would be my answer here for question 7? In my example, the correct answer would be in the poor range. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to bold and I'm going to highlight there as my correct answer, okay, in my example. Again, remember, for your data, it could be different, okay, so keep that in mind, okay. It could be in the poor range, but it could be one of these others too, in the higher range or in the middle range, Okay, so yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, so again, based upon the shape, the curve of your frequency polygon, okay, based on the curve that you select here, based on the curve that is created in the frequency polygon that you create in question 5, that's going to dictate your answer, okay, for questions 6 and 7. And so yeah, so and again, before I close here, real quick, again, my example was a positive skewed, right? Okay, again, this is indicative of lots of poor scores. Okay, most of the subjects scored in the poor range here. What about a negatively skewed curve? What does that mean? Yeah, that just means the opposite, right? If you take a look at a curve such as this here, again, this is pull-up scores, all right? But yeah, kind of a similar type deal. Pull-up scores, sit-to-stand scores, the higher the number, the better. Okay, the higher the number, the better. And so, yeah, take a look here. A lot of the subjects scored these high scores, these high values. 11, 5 subjects, 12, 6 subjects scored a 12, 5 subjects scored a 13, 2 subjects scored a 14. So, yeah, a lot of the subjects scored values in this higher range. And so, yeah, for a negatively skewed curve, okay, yeah, where are most of the scores? Where do they tend to be on the curve? They tend to be in the higher range. Last one, what about a normal curve? A normal curve, where do most scores occur? Yeah, most scores occur in the middle, right here, right? Not a lot of scores in the extremes, not a lot of scores in the tails. 6, 7, right? There's only one subject here that scored those values. Only one subject scored a 13, only one subject scored a 14. However, if we take a look here in the middle, 5 subjects scored a 9, 6 subjects scored a 10, 5 subjects scored an 11. Okay, a lot of the subjects are concentrated right here. Okay, they had scores that were in the middle of the range, the middle of the scale. Okay, so yeah, so depending upon the curve, depending upon the frequency polygon, again, that's going to dictate where most of the subject scores, where they lie. Okay, do they fall? Do they lie in the poor range, in the higher range, or in the middle range? And again, you're going to determine that based upon the frequency polygon that you create in question number 5. Again, that's going to dictate your answers for 6 and 7. Okay, now that we've completed all of the questions, okay, we've either highlighted our answers, we've inserted our graphs, okay, into the correct spots, inserted our spreadsheets, inputted our values for minimum, maximum, inputted the number of subjects, the sample size here in question 2. Okay, we inserted our spreadsheet here with our organized data for question 1. Now that we've done all that, now that we've answered all of the questions, okay, now the last step is save. Okay, let's save our worksheet. Let's save our assignment 1, and then after you save it to your computer, then you can re-upload the assignment to the Dropbox. Okay, re-upload the assignment to the Dropbox on Blackboard in order to turn this assignment in, and make sure and do it by the due date and time. And again, I don't have the directions here on my assignment, okay, however they are on your assignment that you download. And so yeah, you'll download your assignment off of Blackboard, okay, as a Word document, just like I've shown here. You'll answer all the questions just like I showed you here using Excel, inputting them back into the Word document. Once you've answered all these questions, save your Word document and then re-upload that Word document with all of your answers to each question to Blackboard, okay, back to that assignment, back to that Dropbox that's created. Okay, I think that's it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay, feel free to email me. However, I encourage you, like I said earlier today, throughout this video, please study, please review the PowerPoint, please watch this video. And again, you can watch this video while you're doing your assignment, okay? Yeah, and you can pause it, obviously, feel free to pause it, okay? And then, answer a question, then you can resume the video later to answer the other questions. Yeah, however you want to do it, okay? But yeah, take advantage, use the PowerPoint, review it, study it, use this video, okay, to help you successfully answer all of the questions on this first assignment, assignment number 1. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, that's it for me. Feel free to email me if you have any further questions, additional questions, and I'd be happy to answer them after you've watched the video, after you've reviewed the PowerPoint. All right. Thanks. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.